Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyanam Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Prapta Sakalyanam Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Mahaprabhu ki Tananita Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasu Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shri Vigrahara Tananitanana Shringaratanama Niramajanado Juktasya bhaktam sa niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Svatvana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Kridvaiva Tripti Vajato Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shiradikama Tabayara Para Madhura Leela Gunarupa Namna Shiradikama Para Pratikshana sa Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam kunjayuno ratikelisidyai jajali bhir juktir apekshaniya. Tatrati daksha ativalabhasya vande gura shri charanara vrindam. Sachadari dvaina shamasta shashri ruktas tathava vyataiva sadvi. Kintu pravarja priya eva tasya vande guru shri charanara vrindam. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado yasya prasadam nagati kutapi. Yasya prasadam Dayam stuvam tasya yasatrin sandhyam vande guru shri charanara vrindam. Vande guru shri charanara vrindam. Vande guru shri charanara vrindam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama. Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatarisha Tarine. Nirvishesha Shanavadi Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Ramo Ramo Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hariyaraye Nama Krishna Jadavaye Nama Hariyara Jadavaye Madhavaye Krishavaye Nama Hari Gopal Govindaram Shrimadhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Shishya Radha Nila Madhava, Radha Nila Madhava, Radhe. Jayo Jagana, Jayo Baladeva, Jayo Subhadrama, Jayo Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jayo Sitaram, Jayo Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Haribo, Haribo, Jai Gaura Pramanande, Haribo. Jai Vishnu Para Paramita Prabhajaka Sutta Rasarasi Shimari Divine Grace. अवचर बिना भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन प्रतिष्ठा विविधि संस्थापक आचार्य वैष्णव शिरोमणि पतित पावन श्रील प्रभुपाद जी महाराज की जय। श्री गौर्य गुरु वर्गापति उद्धार की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भक्त दास गुण सदगोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय। अनंत कुल वैष्णव वृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासारि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन के जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद श्रीमान गौरंग श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावरनाय अवतार की जय। गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन जग की जय। जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। बृहत निदांग ट्रांसलेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप राधा कुंज समकुंज गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रज वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय। तिलो शिव श्री राधा नीलमाधव की जय। श्री श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय। परम करुण श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु स्मस्पद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन कर सिंह भगवान की जय। राम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय। गंगा माई जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्रीमती राधा रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौरी परमानंदे हरिभो। All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru Shri Gaur.
Simhaya
Namaste Narasimhaya
Prahlad Lad Daine
Prahlad Lad Daine
Hiranyakashi Purvashah Shilatangkhana khalaye
Shilatangkhana khalaye
Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha
Ito Nisingha Parato Nisingha
Yato yato yami tato Narsimha
Yato yato yami tato Nisingha
Pate Narsimha Narsimha Pate Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade
Narasingamadim Sharanam Prapade
Tav Kal Kamalavare Nakha Aduta Shenga Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringa Keshavadhirta Narahari Ru रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
तव कर कमल बरे नाका अद्भुत सिंहा लालिता हिरण्यकशिपो तनभिंगा
केशवधीरता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवधीरता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवधीत नरहरि रूप जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
जयो नरसिंह देव जयो नरसिंह देव जयो नरसिंह देव जयो नरसिंह देव
जय नृसिंह रे जय नृसिंह रे जय नृसिंह रे जय नृसिंह रे
जयो भक्त प्रहलाद जयो भक्त प्रहलाद जयो भक्त प्रहलाद जयो प्रहलाद महाराज
जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद महाराज
जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद
जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद
नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय
श्री वृंदायै तुलसीबाई प्रियै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः वृंदायै तुलसीबाई प्रियै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय You want to sing? Oh, Kavya, you want to sing? Yes. Tulsi? Tulsi?
Krishna preyasi namo namah.
Krishna preyasi
Radha Krishna Seva Pabo Abhilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pabo Abhilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilasi.
Ye tomara salanaloe tara vancha puna hoe.
Tomara sharanala taravancha puna.
Kripa kori koro tare Vrindavana vasi.
Kripa kare karatare Vrindavanavasi.
Mora bilas bilas kunje diova. Nayane hari bosada yugala ruparasi. Namo namah. Eine vedana daro sakira nugata koro.
Eine vedana dara sakira yano katakara.
Sewa adhikara diye koroni jadasi.
Seva yade karadiye karani jadasi.
Dinna Krishna dase koi e jana mora hoye. Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi. Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi. Yani kani cha papani Brahma tyadi kani cha tani tani pranasyante pradaksina pade pade.
Yani kani cha papani Brahma tyadi Ganesha Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakena Pade Pade.
Yani kani cha papani Brahma tyadi kani cha Tanitani pranasyanti Pradaksina pade pade Yani capapani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranasyanti Pradaksina pade pade Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani. Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Tulasi Maharani ki, Jai Vrinda Devi ki, Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande.
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namah. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namah. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namaha. Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of his wishes fulfilled, bestow myself on him, you make me resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham, that within my vision I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavya damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna prays. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Ki Jai. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai. Chaito Darpanamarjanam Mahadam Vasminivapanam Shri Akai Vachantika Vitaranam Vidyavadudivanam Ananda Vidivartanam Padipadam Pudam Vitaswadanam Sabha Krishna Param Jai Shri Krishna Sankirtan
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai. Namo Mahavrinaya Vishnu Pradati Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Gaura Krishna. Glory to Shri Krishna's Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditioned life of people, birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the primary addiction for humanity at large, for it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of transcendental life. It includes the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can grant all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda.
In these transcendental names, you have they're not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate to have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. Nanda, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other, I will fall into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs on my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling a separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is
He is
completely free to do anything and everything, for he is my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Sri Chaitanya Siksastakam Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamri. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Devi Sesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarni.
So the Ajahn of Princess Mary chanting the holy name of the Lord, that must be devotee. They are as follows. One,
To blaspheme the devotee, dedicate their lives to propagating the holy names of the Lord.
two,
To consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the names of Lord Vishnu.
three,
To disobey the orders of the spiritual master.
four,
To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version.
five,
To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination.
six,
To give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord.
seven,
To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord.
eight,
To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities or karma kanda.
nine,
To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name.
and 10.
To not have complete faith in the chanting of holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let's offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpa tarabhyascha kripasindubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha vaishnava thakur ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharani Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskata. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantharaja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmad Yasya Yato Niviyad Itaratascha Tesua Vigyaswarat. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Surayaha. Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha. Damna Srena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
O all-providing personality of God.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisance
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth
and meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute
and the primeval cause of all causes,
and the primeval cause of all
of
causes,
the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested
He is directly and
universe.
indirectly conscious of all
He is
manifestations.
directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he is independent because there's no other cause
And
behind
he is
him.
independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji,
It is the only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge into the heart of
the original living being.
the original living
By
being.
him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion,
By him have the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
as one is bewildered by the illusory representation
As one is bewildered by the illusory representation
of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
of a water seen to fire, land seen to water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universe
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature,
appear factual although they are unreal.
appear factual although they are unreal.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon Lord Shri
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
who is eternally existent in the transcendent
which is
world,
forever free from the illusory representations of this material
which is
world.
forever free from the illusory representation of material
I
world.
meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him for he is the absolute
Dharma Pujita Kaitra Gotra,
Dharma Pujita Kaita
Paramo Nimatsanam Satam,
Paramo Nimashwaram
Vedyam Vastava Matra Vastu,
Vedyam Vastavam Astavastu
Shivadam Tapa Trayon Mulanam,
Shivaram Tapo Trayamranam
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamani Krita,
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamani
Kim Vapure Ishwaraha
Kimva Parishvara
Sadyo Hridi Avaruditetra
Sadyarudya Validati
Kriti Bihi Sususabhistakshanat.
Kritihi Shishishvistakya.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are
This
material.
Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth,
This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees that are fully pure. in
The
heart.
highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, the reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Such truth uproots the threefold mysteries.
Such truth uproots the threefold mystery.
This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity,
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled with this Vyasadeva is maturity.
is sufficient in itself for God
It's
realization.
sufficient itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other
What
scripture?
is the need of the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentiveness submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of knowledge,
by this culture,
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam
Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam.
sukhamukad amrita dravya samyatam
Sukamukhadam rita dravasam.
pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam
Vivata bhagavatam vasamalaya.
muhur ahoraska bhuvibhavakaha.
Mura hora sikab vivavaka.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
O expert and thoughtful and relish Shmaro.
the mature fruit of the desired true Vedic literatures.
The mature fruit of the desired true Vedic
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Shishukadeva.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Although its nectarine juice was already relishable for all,
Although its nectarian juice is all relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including the brothers.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna
Shambhatam Swakata Krishna.
Punya Shravana Kirtana
Punya Shravana Kirtan.
Hiryantak Stohi Bhadrani
Vidyantastu Hiya Bhadrani.
Vidunati Srihitsatam.
Vidunati Suritsata.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from the Vedic literature,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from him directly from the
is itself righteous activity.
It is self-righteous.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for one who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's
acts
heart.
as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
Acts as the best Christian friend and purifies the body, constantly engaged in hearing him.
Nasta presu abhadresu
Nasta Praisha Bhadeshu.
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Seva.
bhagavati uttama sloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
bhaktir bhavati naistake.
Bhakti Bhagavati Nastiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, the devotee naturally develops dormant transcendence.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavad
and from the devotees,
and from the
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service.
Tadarajastamo bhava
Tadarajastamo bhava.
kamalobhadayaschaye
Kamalobhadayascha.
chete tairanavitam
Chitaitanavidam.
stitvam sattve prasidati. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
One becomes free from the modes of passion.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
And this material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam prasanamana.
bhagavad bhakti yogataha
Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga.
bhagavad tattva vijnanam
Bhagavad Tattva
mukta sangasya jayate.
Mukta Sanghasya.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are what they were.
the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
The candidate remains steady in his position of pure
becomes
goodness,
enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional
and
service,
understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the sons of God perfectly.
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
Vidyate Hridaya Granthi.
chidyante sarva samsaya,
Chidyante Sarva Samshaya.
sriyante jasya karmani,
Chiyante Chasakarmani.
drishta evatmanishvare.
Drista Ivatmaneshwari.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the heart not of material affection,
Bhakti Yoga serves the harness material affection.
and enables one at once to come to the stage of samsayam samagam,
And enable us to come at once to the stage of assumption of Samagramam,
understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth Personality of Godhead.
understanding the supreme absolute true personality.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees in
can one
Krishna
understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Shri Guru Vastika prayers, Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it.
The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean master, just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish.
So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
So the spiritual master delivers the material afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lord, to such a spiritual master who is in the ocean of species qualities.
Chanting holy names, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments.
Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical
The
instruments.
spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan moment of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind.
because he's relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind.
Sometimes his hair stands on end.
Sometimes his hair stands on end.
He feels quivering in his body,
He feels quivering in his
and
body,
tears flow from his eyes like
and
waves.
tears flow from his eye like
I offer my
waves.
respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lord to such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna.
Spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and
He
Krishna.
also engages his disciples in such worship.
He also engages his disciples in such worship.
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
They do the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
clean their temple,
clean the temple,
and perform other similar worship of the Lord.
and perform other similar worship to the Lord.
For my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
Offer respectful obeisance unto the Lord.
The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food.
The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious
Analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked.
food. Analyze that which is liquid, drunk, and struck.
When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasad,
When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasad,
he is satisfied.
he is satisfied.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the Lord to such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava.
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava,
And their qualities, names, and forms.
and their qualities, name, and
The
form.
spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every
I
moment.
offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the Lord to such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana.
The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan.
I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord.
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant of the Lord.
This is acknowledged by all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities.
He is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities.
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna.
Therefore, I offer my humble obeisance unto Lord to such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of my spiritual
And 3
master.
times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto Lord to my spiritual master.
Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam.
Ishvara Parama Krishna Sakchit Ananda Vigraha Anadi Adir Govinda Sarva Karana
Chintamani Prakata Satma Sukalpa Vriksha
Chintamani Prakara Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha
Rakshavrite Susurabhira Vipaliyantam
Lakshya Vitesi Surabhira Vivalayantam
Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam
Lakshmi Sahasha Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam
Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Venam Pranantam Aravinda Dalayataksam
Venu Kwanantam Aravinda Daya
Parhavatam Samasitam Buddhisundarangam
Param Samastam Buddha Sundaram
Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobham
Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamalya Vansi
Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamalya Vansi
Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam
Nannam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam
Shyamam Tribanga Lalitani Yataprakasam
Yamam Tribhangala Litam Niyata Prakasham
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti
Angani Yasya Sakalindriya Vrittimanti
Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti
Pasyanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti
Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya
Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigraha
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam
Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam
Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha
Adyam Purana Purusham Navajovanam Cha
Vedeshu Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto
Vedeshi Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakti
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo
Antastu Koti Satatvatsara Sampraga
Ayoratapi Manaso Munipungamanam
Vayo Ratapi Manaso Muni Pungavana
Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tattve
Sopyasiya Prapadasimya Vichincha Tattve
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Ekopya Sora Chaitum Jagadanda Kotim
Ekopya Sora Chachitum Jagadanta Kuti
Yashaktirasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta
Yashakti Rasti Jagananda Chayajadanta
Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam
Adantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manujasta Taiva
Yad Bhava Bhavito Dhiyo Manujasta Daiva
Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhushaha
Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusha
Suktaryameva Nikama Pratitaistuvanti
Sute Yameva Nigama Pratitestu Vanti
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitavis
Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitavis
Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Taya Kalavi
Davirya Eva Nijarupa Taya Karavi
Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto
Goloka Eva Nipasatya Khilatma Bhuto
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena
Premanjana Shrita Bhakti Vilochane
Santak Sadaiva Hidayesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam
Yam Syama Sundaram Achintya Maguna
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Ramadi Murti Sukalani Amena Tistam
Ramadi Moti Sukalani Yamena Tishta
Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvane Subkintu
Nana Vatara Makaro Dubane Shukin
Krishna Swayam Samabhavad Paramam Pumam Yo
Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Kotim
Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda Koti
Kotishvase Suvasudadi Vibhuti Binam
Kotya Swashesha Vasudhari Vibhuti
Tad
Vinam
Brahmaniskalam Ananta Tam Shesha Bhutam
Tat Brahmaniskalam Asmantam Ashesha Bhutam
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Maya hiyasya jagananda satani sute.
Maya Yasya Jagananda Satani Sute.
Trigunya tad vishaya veda vitayamanam.
Gunyata Vishaya Veda Vitayama.
Sattva bulambi parasatvam visuddha sattvam. Govindam adi purusham aham bhajami.
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamam.
Ananda chinmaya rasatmataya manasu.
Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manashu.
Ya praninam pratifalam smaratam upetya.
Ya Praninam Pratipalam Smaratam Upetya.
Nilayatena bhuvanani jayaya jasram.
Nirayitena Bhuvani Jagatyati Shastram.
Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamam.
Golokanamni nichadamni tale chatasya.
Golokanamni Nijadamni Tali Chatasya.
Devi mahesha haridama sute sutesu.
Devi Mahesha Haridama Suteshu Teshu.
Te te prabhava nichaya vihitascha yena.
Tete Prabhava Nichaya Vihita Chaye.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Shristi stati pralaya sadhana saktireka.
Sthiti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Rekha.
Jayeva yasya bhuvanani vibharti durga.
Jayena Yasha Bhuvani Vibhakti Durga.
Ichchana rupam api yasya chachestate sa.
Icharupa Yasya Tistatesa.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Shiram yata dadi vikara vishesha yoga.
Kiram Yata Dadi Vikara Vishesha Yoga.
Sanjayate nahitata pritakasti hetu.
Sanjayatena Hitatata Pitakastietu.
Yasam bhutam apitata samapaiti karyat.
Yasambhutam Apitata Samupaiti Karya.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Vipatra eva hitasantaram abhyupetya.
Viparchit Eva Santam Upatitya.
Dipayate vivita hetu samana dharma.
Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samana Dharma.
Yastajik eva hicha vishnu taya vibhati.
Yastati Eva Icha Vishnu Taya Vibhati.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Yakarnanarnava jale bhajati sma yoga.
Yakara Narva Jale Bhajati Sma Yoga.
Nidram ananta jagadanta saruma kupa.
Nidram Ananta Jagananda Saruma Kupa.
Adhara shakti avalambya param swamurtim.
Adhara Shakti Avalam Param Swamurti.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, verse number 10. Parabhutir adharmasya tamasas chapi paschima nadyo nada nadidam cha gotranam asti samhati. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The back of the Lord is a place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immortality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In order to defy the impersonal conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a systematic analysis of the physiological and anatomical constitution of his transcendental body is given herein. It is clear from the available description of the body of the Lord, his universal form, that the form of the Lord is distinct from the forms of ordinary mundane conception. In any case, he is never a formless void. Ignorance is the back of the Lord, and therefore the ignorance of the less intelligent class of men is also not separate from his bodily conception. Since his body is the complete whole of everything that be, one cannot assert that he is impersonal only. On the contrary, the perfect description of the Lord holds that he is both impersonal and personal simultaneously. The personality of Godhead is the original feature of the Lord, and his impersonal emanation is but the reflection of his transcendental body. Those who are fortunate enough to have a view of the Lord from the front can realize his personal feature, whereas those who are frustrated and are thus kept in the ignorance side of the Lord, or in other words, those who have the view of the Lord from the back, realize him in his impersonal feature. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The back of the Lord is the place of all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immortality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, in this interesting purport, Prabhupada says that in order to defy or defeat the impersonal conception of Supreme Personality Godhead. Now, why does he say that? Because 90+% of all gurus in India are impersonalists. That's why he says it. And they, as we've explained before, engage in the ultimate cancel culture. They cancel Krishna, they cancel Vaikuntha, they cancel Goloka, they cancel Nanda Maharaj and Yasodamani, etc., as we've explained before. They cancel everything. And they say there's only the Brahma Jyoti, or this eternal light energy, which is impersonal. And for them, the highest achievement in spiritual life is merging into that impersonal light. Well, they have things very, very partially right, and a lot of things extremely wrong. Everything they cancel is wrong, because all those things they want to cancel actually exist eternally. And what they do validate the existence of Brahman is right, but their understanding of it is wrong. It's possible to say something exists and still have a wrong conception of what it is. Like, for example, people say, this is my body. Well, it's something that is only temporary, and the body is always changing from one day to the next and throughout life. So when they identify themselves with the body, it is actually wrong. Although the body exists, and when they say my body, actually it's Krishna's body. The body belongs to Krishna. The senses belong to Krishna. They've been given to us temporarily, and it's our purpose in life to understand why they have a material body that's different than the soul, and how to use the body correctly. And at first people don't come to this understanding, and they think they should use the body for sense gratification. Well, they validate that something exists, but their understanding of it is incorrect. And that's the position of the Mayavadis. They validate that there's something called the Brahma Jyoti, which is this eternally emanating light energy, and that's true, but their understanding of it is wrong. And actually, the Brahma Jyoti is not really impersonal if you analyze it correctly, because the Brahma Jyoti is made up of infinite pencils of light who are, or sparks of light, who are living entities. So their understanding of the Brahma Jyoti is wrong. And everything they cancel is wrong. So their understanding of the truth, or absolute truth, is very, very limited. and therefore, Vadanti tat das tattvam yajganam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti subjate. That Supreme Absolute Truth is understood in three phases, or three steps: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, Krishna. So they only have a partial understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth, and because of that they fall down eventually. So both the impersonal and the personal exist simultaneously in the Lord. And so for devotees, there's no argument about impersonal and personal understanding of the Lord. They understand that these two things exist simultaneously in the Lord. Well, they exist in us also. We have an impersonal, let's say, attribute. Like, for example, if you own a company and you're the CEO of the company, well, CEO is a person, but his presence is also in every aspect of the company, right? He establishes all the protocols and processes, and he has a system of overseeing that they're followed, and if they're not followed, he exerts his authority and demotes someone or throws them out of the company. So he's present everywhere in the company, but he's somewhere else at the same time. Right? He's present by his authority, but he's maybe on a vacation in Mexico, but still everyone is subjected to his authority. So he's simultaneously present and not present physically. So we all have, so this personal and impersonal aspect is existing at every level in the material universe. But what is whether we have a proper understanding of it, that's the question. So therefore it says here that the perfect description of the Lord holds that he is both impersonal and personal simultaneously. The personality of Godhead is the original feature of the Lord, and his impersonal emanation is but the reflection of his transcendental body. Those who are fortunate enough to have a view of the Lord from the front can realize his personal feature, whereas those who are frustrated and are thus kept in the ignorance on the ignorance side of the Lord, or in other words, those who have the view of the Lord from the back realize him in his impersonal feature. Okay, so now let's clear up one point. This is a description of the Virat Rupa, or the universal form of the Lord, which is more or less illusory because it's not eternal. But it is existing only in the material world, and it goes through appearance and disappearance. So in that sense, it is more or less unreal. But it's also necessary to help atheistic people begin to have a personal concept of God. And we've gone over that point before. But today I want to go further in this understanding of Krishna. Like, somebody can understand that something exists, but they can also have a wrong idea of what it is. This is indicative of modern so-called knowledge. The modern so-called knowledge, most of it is understanding that things exist, but they have a wrong idea of what it is. So, is it knowledge at that point? No, it's not real knowledge. It's misleading. However, they claim they have knowledge. Okay, so it's just like yesterday I was hearing about this one lady. She's only 20 years old, and she was like a genius in India, and she was hired by, I think, Microsoft, but they insisted that she have the vaccination against COVID. She took the vaccination against COVID, and she was dead 2 or 3 days later because she had some kind of precondition, and the vaccine was incompatible with her precondition. So she died right away. Well, there's a brilliant young lady who's snuffed out by a dictate that she must take the vaccine in order to be hired. Now, this is happening a lot around the world because these vaccines have not been tested thoroughly, and all different ramifications have not been studied. They're actually testing it on people now, and some people are dying or being affected by it in different ways. So that's what happens when there's a rush to do something, and then you find, and this is not the first time this has happened. It's happened many times in the past. Certain medicines are approved by the FDA, and after taking it for like 5 or 10 years, they stop it. They say, don't take it anymore. It causes death, or it causes this, or it causes that, right? That definitely happened with a certain medicine that women were taking for their menopause, and it was actually causing cancer. But it took them a long time to realize it, and a lot of people died, and they finally realized that. And then they sent out all this information. Don't take this. What is it? Hormone therapy or whatever it is that they had. So, and it has happened. It has happened oftentimes with medicines that even have gone through long scrutiny by the FDA and then approved, and then they found out that it was actually a dangerous medicine. Okay, so this is something that is, let's say, going on in Kali Yuga. This is the age of hypocrisy and quarrel. So we're going to see that people have certain knowledge, but what they claim to know, they have a wrong concept of it. And so if we read the first canto, 18th chapter, verses 22 to 25. So let's take a look at that. We looked at some of these yesterday, but we're going to go in more depth. So 1:8:22. So it says, I'm sorry, 1:18:32. Sorry. 1:18:32. On 18:22 to 20. Okay. Yeah, so this verse, it says, self-controlled persons who are attached to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna can all of a sudden give up the world of material attachment, including the gross body and subtle mind, and go away to attain the highest perfection of the renounced order of life, by which nonviolence and renunciation are consequential. Okay. So, there's a very important point made in this purport, and that is that, first of all, real devotees are non-envious. Nirmatsanam satam, they don't have envy. Envy means that envy is worse than jealousy. Jealousy means somebody has something that you don't have, and you want to have the same thing, or otherwise you're very frustrated, and actually you're jealous of that person. You don't like them because they have something you don't have. So, but when you get the same thing, then you're satisfied. But envy is different than jealousy. when a person is envious, even if they attain the same thing that another person has that they want to have, they're still not satisfied until they destroy that person. So that was the case of Ravana. He had hundreds of wives, and they were all very beautiful, and especially Mandodari, which is one of the most beautiful women in the whole material universe. But he wasn't satisfied because he heard about Lord Ramachandra's wife, Sita Devi. So he was not satisfied, even though he had so many beautiful and exquisite wives. And he wanted to deprive Ramachandra of his wife. So that's called envy. You might have something that another person, and somebody else might have something you don't have, and you're jealous of it. But when you're envious, not only you want to attain what they have, but you want them to lose what they have, and you want them to be completely decimated or destroyed. So it says there, Nirmatsanam Satam, the devotees are not envious. That's the sign of a genuine devotee. Rather than destroy another person, they want everyone to go back to Godhead. So it says here, but a perfect Paramahansa, or great devotee, being completely given up to the service of the Lord, is perfectly non-envious. Because when you engage in the service of the Lord, you share and all your knowledge with others. Like, for example, Duryodhana, he was a Brahmana, but he was teaching the art of war to the sons of Dhritarashtra and to the Pandavas. Now, he knew that Arjuna was going to kill him in the future. He knew it. But yet, he was not envious of Arjuna, and therefore, he taught him everything he knew about the art of war. And he also taught his son, Aswatthama. But it just so happened that he was very, let's say, attracted to Arjuna, because Arjuna was a very serious student, even more serious than his own son. Although he taught his son up to the point of being able to manipulate the Brahmastra weapon, which is the ultimate nuclear weapon, but in the form of an arrow, but an arrow that's surcharged with energy. So, Duryodhana knew how to launch the Brahmastra, but he didn't. But because he wasn't such a careful and studious and obedient disciple, he didn't know how to stop it. But Arjuna was the favorite disciple of Dronacharya, because he was always focused on pleasing his guru and following his instructions. So one time, the guru had a little contest. So he said that there was a green bird in a green forest, and the disciples had to shoot an arrow and hit the bird in the eye. So first, Duryodhana was asked to do this. So he stepped up and he pointed his bow and arrow, or he pointed his arrow, and pulled his bow back, and then his guru said, "What do you see?" He said, "I see the tree." "Now what do you see?" He said, "I see the bird on the branch of the tree." He said, "Now what do you see?" "I see the head of the bird." "And now what do you see?" And he said, "I see the leaves in the background." He said, "Sit down, you are a nonsense." So then he called Arjuna. He said, "Okay, Arjuna, draw your bow." He said, "What do you see?" He said, "I see the tree." "What do you see?" "I see the bird." He said, "What do you see?" "I see the eye of the bird." He says, shoot your arrow. And he shot the arrow and hit it right in the eye. So, what was the difference between Duryodhana and Arjuna? Arjuna was completely focused on achieving the purpose that was given to him by his guru, whereas his son was not so focused. Now, this is also explained in Bhagavad Gita, in the verse, the second chapter. It says, Bhogaishvarya prasaktanam tayaparata chetasam vivasatmaka buddhi ekaha kurunandana samadona vidyate vivasatmaka buddhi samada navidyate. It says, in the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. So, Prabhupada explains in the purport, samadhi means fixed mind. The Vedic dictionary, the Nirukti, says, samyak adiyate smin atma tattva yatatmyam. When the mind is fixed for understanding the self, it's said to be in samadhi. Samadhi is never possible for persons interested in material sense enjoyment, nor for those who are bewildered by such temporary things. They are more or less condemned by the process of material energy. Wow, that's a very important point. So Duryodhana obviously did not have the same focus or intense focus as Arjuna did. And therefore, Arjuna, although Dronacharya knew he would kill him in the future, he favored him and gave him all the knowledge because he was a real Brahmana. He was not envious. He was a real, like Paramahansa. He was not envious. And he shared all his knowledge with Arjuna, and Arjuna would use that knowledge in the future to kill him. Right? But his son was not focused as much as Arjuna. And therefore, his son later on did some really bad things and was cursed for all the bad things he did. Okay, so this non-enviousness of the devotee is a very important point. And then it says, such a devotee loves every living being in relation with the Supreme Lord. So what does that mean? Loving someone in relation to the Supreme Lord. So that means that we're all the sons and daughters of God, or we're all coming from Krishna. We're part and parcel of Krishna. So therefore, a real devotee who is non-envious doesn't see the body. He sees the soul and its relationship to Krishna. That's the real solution to all prejudice and all discrimination and all these bad things that people talk about. But they try and solve these problems using material strategies, and they fail, right? They always fail, and they never really get a equitable society or a competitionless society where everyone has equal rights or equal opportunities, blah, 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 or, because they don't see the soul. It's just like they see a human being, but they don't understand the human being. Human being is not just matter. The human being is and it's not exactly a combination of matter and spirit. It is matter covering the spirit. And they're two different things. And the real person is not the body. The body only seems real because the soul is present. As soon as the soul leaves the body is dead meat. It has no consciousness. So they understand something. It's a human being. But they have a misunderstanding of what it actually is. So also, here it says, every living being is dependent on someone else because he is so made. So we all depend, the wife depends on the husband depends on the wife, the child depends on the parents, the student depends on the teacher, the employee depends on the CEO or the team leader. So everybody is dependent in the material world. There's no one that is completely independent, right? So when you don't have anyone to depend on, you get a dog. And now you depend on the dog to give you some solace or to give you some company. So no one is totally independent. So actually everyone is dependent on but every living being is dependent on someone else because he is so made. Actually, everyone is dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord, but when one forgets his relation with the Lord, he becomes dependent on the conditions of material nature. That's a huge point. What does it mean to be dependent on the conditions of material nature? Well, just like, let's say, the SpaceX rocket of Bezos, right? Or the rocket of, what's his name, Bannon? Or what, I forget his name. Anyway, what happens is sometimes the weather is bad, so they say, oh, we can't send a rocket because of bad weather conditions. We'll have to wait for good weather. So that's something that's dependent on conditions of material nature. Right? Sometimes the weather is very bad and people cancel meetings, or they cancel this or cancel that because of material conditions. Or sometimes they have to pay their taxes, but because of coronavirus and this or that, they postpone the paying of the taxes because of material conditions. Right? So when a person is not Krishna conscious and not totally dependent on the mercy of Krishna, then they forget their relationship with the Lord and they become dependent on conditions of material nature. Prabhupada says, renunciation means renouncing one's dependence on the conditions of material nature and thus becoming completely dependent on the mercy of Krishna. You notice he didn't say trying to become completely independent. Why? Because the nature of the living entity is to be dependent on someone else. And that's the way we are made. See? So the idea, that someone is completely independent of everything, that's a false concept. We're never completely independent. So real independence, Prabhupada says, means complete faith in the mercy of the Lord without dependence on the conditions of matter. This Paramahansa stage is the highest professional stage in Bhakti Yoga, the process of devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Well, this is a big, big point, and we have to understand it carefully because this is what we should aspire for, to be completely dependent on the Lord and not be dependent on material conditions. Now, another major point is Srimad Bhagavatam 1:18-33 to 35. It explains how Brahmins in the Kali Yuga have fallen down. And this is a very serious point because it has affected many, many people and ruined many people's lives. Because the Brahmanas are supposed to be the leaders of society, not that they're political leaders, but they're spiritual leaders of society. But when they're fallen, that affects the whole society. That means all the different orders of life will fall down. So what was the origin of this? Well, this started in the history of Maharaj Parikshit and the son of the Brahmana, Shringi. So we read this in the first canto, 18th chapter. But looking at it more carefully, we suddenly become very, let's say, acutely aware of why there are so many problems in this age of Kali Yuga. So here it says in 1:1833 that the Brahminical injustice, the first victim of Brahminical injustice in Kali Yuga was Maharaj Parikshit. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but now we're going to go deep into it, because if we understand this, then we understand why there's so many problems in society today. So it says, this young boy named Shringi, he was the son of a very highly qualified Brahmana. He was trained as a young brahmachari by his father so that he could become a powerful Brahmana. And even though he was still very young, he had tremendous powers. His father taught them these powers. But even though he had these powers, he was still inexperienced. He didn't have a lot of experience. What does experience mean, actually? Well, real experience means the Siksastakam prayers of Lord Chaitanya, because that is the culture. He's explaining what is the culture of Krishna consciousness. Right? Culture means how you do things. So when he says, Na danam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadishikamaye, mama janmani janmanishwari, bhavatad bhaktir haitukitvaye. I don't want any amount of wealth. I don't want to exploit beautiful women, or women exploit handsome men. I don't want any amount, I don't want any followers or disciples. And all I want is to have devotional service birth after birth, which means I don't want any liberation either. So that's culture of Krishna consciousness, right? What is the culture of modern education, in elementary school, middle school, high school, college? I want sense gratification. And to get sense gratification, I need money. And I can get money legally or illegally, but I want sense gratification. And I don't care about God or death. Anyway, when I die, everything is over. So why should I care about God if everything is over? So what's not over is my chance for sense gratification. So this is what they learn in modern education. It's not that they're learning how to become a mechanical engineer, or how to become an IT guy, or how to become a lawyer, who are liars, or a politician, or whatever. No, they're learning how to become sense gratifiers. That's what they're learning. That's what they're being taught, right? And all these professions are just ways that they can make money so they can have sense gratification. Okay? So the culture of modern life is sense gratification. And the culture of Krishna consciousness is, I want to use my senses to please Krishna. And the culture of material life today is, I want to use my senses to please myself. I don't care about Krishna or anybody else. So, it says here, this boy Shringi, he had achieved good training in brahmacharya, or celibate life, by his father, so that he would be as powerful as a brahmana even at his young age. But because the age of Kali was seeking an opportunity to spoil the cultural heritage of the four orders of life, the inexperienced boy gave a chance for the age of Kali to enter into the field of Vedic culture. Hatred of the lower orders of life began from this Brahmana boy. Under the influence of Kali, and thus cultural life began to dwindle day after day. The first victim of Brahminical injustice was Maharaj Parikshit, and thus the protection given by the king against the onslaught of Kali was slackened. So, this boy, actually Brahmanas are considered to be, as I said before, the head and brains of the social body. And the Kshatriyas are considered to be the arms of the social body. The arms are required to protect the body from all harm. but the arms must act according to the directions of the head and the brain. That is a natural arrangement made by the Supreme Order, for it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that 4 social orders or castes, namely Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras, are set up according to quality and work done by them. Naturally, the son of a Brahmana has a good chance to become a Brahmana by the direction of his qualified father, as the son of a medical practitioner has a very good chance to become a qualified medical practitioner. So the caste system is quite scientific. The son must take advantage of the father's qualification and thus become a Brahmana or medical practitioner and not otherwise. Without being qualified, one cannot become a Brahmana or medical practitioner, and that is the verdict of all scriptures and social orders. Herein, Shringi, a qualified son of a great Brahmana, attained the required Brahminical power, both by birth and by training, but he was lacking in culture because he was an inexperienced boy. This is the point. He had the knowledge, but he was lacking in culture. Now, what is that culture? That is the Shiksastakam prayers of Lord Chaitanya. That's the only thing he ever wrote. 8 prayers. But in those 8 prayers, he encapsulated the essence of Vaishnava culture. And that's why these prayers, we're reciting them every day. They're very extremely important. So it says here, he was lacking in culture because he was an inexperienced boy. By the influence of Kali, the son of a Brahmana became puffed up with Brahminical power and thus wrongly compared Maharaj Parikshit to crows and watchdogs. No, in other words, he's redefining what is a Kshatriya. And so, in other words, he sees something and he can name it and he can identify it, but his understanding of it is wrong. This is a very, very normal condition, horribly normal condition in Kali Yuga. People see things, they have a name for it, but their understanding of it is completely wrong. Just like, today, young men are trained that they should, be like a macho, right? So what's a macho? It's a guy, he's handsome, he's ripped, as they say. He's got abs and he has ripped stomach. Ripped doesn't mean it's broken. It means that, it's fully muscular, and then he wears certain types of clothes that reveal his extraordinary body and strength, and he has a muscle car or some kind of very attractive car and clothes and perfume, and also, or not perfume, but lotions and this and that. And so he's attractive to women, right? And his point is that the more women he can enjoy, the more man he is. So, and that idea of manhood is completely wrong. He is a man, but his understanding of his manhood is wrong. And therefore he causes a lot of misery in life, And then you have these women like Kim Kardashian or her sisters, they're reality show stars, which means nothing, actually. They have no talent other than being really low-class people, and they're just showing how low-class they are. So, and then they have all these magazines that you see at the checkout counter at Safeway and Fred Meyer and places like that. All these headlines. Oh, so and so was caught cheating on his wife, right? So everyone wants to buy that magazine to read about so and so who's cheating on his wife. These movie stars. It's all nonsense. By the way, when people buy those magazines, they usually, look around and make sure no one's seeing it. And they grab the magazine and they turn it upside down on the counter so no one sees that they got one of the stupid magazines. right? And anyway, and what's so interesting in the magazine? It's about the fallen and disgusting behavior of famous people. They want to read about it, about Harry and Meghan, or they want to read about this movie star and that movie star, and how they're cheating on their wife or cheating on their husband, and all this nonsense. Right? So this is the sad state of modern culture, which is a non-culture actually. And today people are getting puffed up all the time with power in the form of money, fame, and so forth. So this started by Shringi in the beginning of Kali Yuga, and then misidentifying or mischaracterizing things. So Shringi was characterizing a Kshatriya, who was Maharaj Pariksit, as a watchdog or some kind of low-class person that's subordinate to Brahmanas, right? And because of that, he made a false accusation against the king. You see how, now you have a whole sequence of things that happen that makes a person more and more antagonistic. So the king is certainly a watchdog of the state in the sense that he keeps vigilant eyes over the border of the state for its protection and defense, but to address him as a watchdog is a sign of a less cultured boy. Thus, the downfall of the Brahminical powers began as they gave importance to birthright without culture. Wow, it's a big statement. Birthright without culture. The downfall of the Brahmana caste began in the age of Kali, and since Brahmanas are the heads of the social order, all other orders of society also began to deteriorate. The beginning of Brahminical deterioration was highly deplored by the father of Shringi, as we will find. And then verse 34, I'm going to read this real quick. It says, the inexperienced Brahmana boy certainly knew that the king asked for water from his father, and the father did not respond. He tried to explain away his father's inhospitality in an impertinent manner befitting an uncultured boy. He was not at all sorry for the king's not being well received. On the contrary, he justified the wrong act in a way characteristic of the Brahmanas of Kali Yuga. Wow, what the Prabhupada is like, throwing a Brahmasta now at the Brahmanas of Kali Yuga today, and he's absolutely right. This boy Shringi, he compared the king to a watchdog, and so it was wrong for the king to even enter the home of a Brahmana and ask for water from the same pot that the Brahmana uses. The dog is certainly reared by its master, but that does not mean that the dog shall claim to dine and drink from the same pot as the master. This mentality of false prestige is the cause of downfall of the perfect social order, or the Varnashram system. And we can see that in the beginning it was started by the inexperienced son of a Brahmana, as the dog is never allowed to enter within the room and hearth, although it is reared by the master. Similarly, according to Shringi, the king had no right to enter the house of Samika Rishi, his father. According to the boy's opinion, the king was on the wrong side and not his father, and thus he justified his silent father. Well, this is the same thing with the Jim Crow laws in the southern states after the Civil War. Those laws were totally discriminative against blacks. And this is the same thing that's happening in India, where Brahmanas, where temples refuse to let the Dalits enter the temple, and so forth. You see, Prabhupada has analyzed this, and Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukadev Goswami has analyzed this before Kali Yuga actually started, and these things have actually happened. And now we understand why there's so much social disorder today. So we'll stop right there. It's a big subject. I'm going to speak about it some more tomorrow. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. if we don't carefully read Srimad Bhagavatam, we don't understand what's happening to us today and why things are happening as they are in society today. So we just remain ignorant and just go with the flow, which means we get more and more confused and frustrated. Yeah, go ahead. Say it in the microphone. Yesterday, I mentioned.
Yeah, you mentioned about 4 orders of society,
Yes.
and also today a little bit, and but at the same time, Prabhupada also wanted us to create like classless society. So what I don't comprehend yet is that for devotees, or people who learn to be devotees, are we doing both of this at the same time, or um, yeah, how does it work, especially in this modern
Okay, I
age?
understand your question.
Yeah.
You have to understand. I mean, we discussed this before. You probably were not here when we discussed it. Classless society is possible in Krishna consciousness because the 4 orders cooperate with each other and they all make spiritual progress to go back to Godhead. So when they all cooperate with each other without enviousness, what happens is all those classes of people, from the Brahmana down to the Sudra, can go back to Godhead in this lifetime. That makes it classless. That cooperation.
Together, or all these 4 orders.
Yeah, the Sudra makes progress spiritually. The Brahmana makes progress. The Brahmana is also a reformative order. It's not that they are perfect. They're being reformed. They're being purified by cooperating in the 4 ashramas. There's 4, not ashramas, but the 4 orders of social life, and then the 4 ashramas of spiritual life. By engaging in the system called Varna ashrama. Varnas are social orders, ashramas are spiritual orders. When they all cooperate, they all go back to Godhead. And it becomes classless at that point. There's no discrimination anymore. They all make tangible spiritual progress and go back to Godhead. So then it becomes classless.
Thank you so much for appreciation. Today we will be leaving to Pullman.
You're going to Eastern Washington. The college there?
I'm
Or?
going to WSU, Washington State.
Yeah, right.
But we will try to visit.
Well, you should start our first temple there.
We have small altar, and sometimes we invite students from India just to have kirtan and prasad. So
It shouldn't be sometimes. It should be regular every week, once a
we'll
week.
try our best, Maharaj.
Yeah, and then
We have
we'll
time.
come and visit you there and have programs.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Haribol. Janara Prasade Mai E Bhavatoriya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoya Hote Shri Guru Chitte Koriya Arana Koriya Mane Asa Shigurane Rati Ese Utamagati Chakshudana Dilaje Janme Janme Shri Guru Charane Radhi Ese Utamagati Prabhu Guru Yan Bebe Asugu Sukti Bhuvana Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Pradaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Saminiti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Vaskatya Rezatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavind. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Jai Gora Hari Bo. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajgacharya Parasatra Shri Shishanaris Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Goita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Sankunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutu Smata Bhaktivinoda Swami. Namaste Saraswati. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection and fulfills all the desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates, by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master, the ocean of mercy, friend of the poor and Lord of